Good morning. It's September 26th, 2023 at 0800, and I call the meeting of the SELCO Commission to order. We have full quorum, and we'll go to the second item on our agenda is to review and consider approval of the July and August 2023 bill schedules and warrants. We'll take any comments on July's bill schedules and warrants. Any comments on those? No. Hearing none, if we have a recommendation to accept the and approve the July warrants.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second, okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Taking August 2023 bill schedules and warrants. Any comments or questions?
I saw a lot of large, and I understand, I guess, large fiber. How does that work? How do we buy our fiber? Because the payments are really significant. And then,
Yeah.
is it as needed, or is it on demand on 30 days, or how does it get
As invoiced?
Yeah, great question. So we've segmented the project into multiple bids, and so when we have a design in place, we then bid the materials for that upcoming phase, if you will. And so we essentially, depending on the material itself, but broadly speaking, we will go solicit quotes at a minimum and then bid the larger quantities.
Is the price fluctuate over the project, or is the
Yes.
fiber fluctuate in pricing, depending on what the metal, value of the metal?
I would say less so metal and more it's resin, popularity of fiber. So with the Rural Development Fund and all of the cash injection for fiber build-outs across the country, it's that supply and demand. And so there's shortages of fiber, therefore prices have gone up to secure that. So we've tried to buy ahead, and that's where we've accelerated some of our designs to make sure we can procure those materials in advance so they're ready for us.
You've not had any supply issues?
We've done well.
delay
I think,
things.
To credit to the group, we've kept up. I mean, with the 2020 era supply chain in general, I'd say we're probably 6-8 months behind the original projections from,
Well,
Has it gotten short of the
Pre-pandemic.
supply chain problems?
Yeah, it's shortened up.
yes,
Yeah.
it's not too bad, but again, we're trying to mitigate that through advanced procurement. But yes, it's not as bad.
Not as
Before,
bad as
it
it
was a
was.
year before we'd see. So those are some of the delays, making sure we had the materials. And
all right,
whatnot.
thanks.
Okay. Any other comments? Yes.
CPR training, that's pretty significant. That's, right? Like, there was a couple of bills in there for CPR training for the staff.
Sure, we do annual CPR training across the board.
CPI stands for
No, CPR.
CPR, okay.
Like, yeah, but it's,
Yeah.
Really
First,
Well, yeah, that's
CPR, first aid.
yeah. I don't know, it just seemed like that's a lot of money.
Oh,
How much was it for?
There was like 2 bills in there. I was like, it's over like, it's like 30 grand, like each, like, isn't it?
You do that for the electrical side,
Okay,
particularly?
everybody.
it's required for
standard, yeah.
field
Yeah.
staff,
Yeah.
but there's a set number of slots, so we'll fill the slots with office folks. I attended.
Oh, no, I was just commenting that it just.
the
was
cost
like-
of-
Yeah, yeah.
No, we could definitely take a look at that.
Is it like, is it all day? How many people are doing it? Like,
It's multiple days.
Yeah, they have
It's,
to run multiple sessions, so this way you don't impact the crews.
Yep.
It's 12, and again, because there's restrictions on how many can be in the class at one time, so I
Yep.
believe it's 12, and we run 12, so if there's 12 per class, I believe there is either 5 or 6 days of training.
Okay,
Oh, wow.
okay.
It's popular.
And required.
It's required, and then I'll admit I encourage folks to do it. The more folks that are available to help in an emergency, the better, in my
Oh,
view.
yeah.
Now, does that also include like AEDs or the?
Yeah.
That's
Right,
AEDs.
it's not just, it's
Oh,
just
it's
nothing.
AED?
It's not
It's
just the huff and
AED.
puff.
It's CPR and first aid, so anyone that has attended, which is quite a few, we're fully qualified to administer AEDs, CPR, first aid at any moment, anywhere. So it's kind of nice, a nice life skill.
Okay. Any other comments? None. Do we have a motion to accept the August bill schedules? and
So
warrants?
moved.
Okay, and
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay. And item 3, approve, review and consider approval of meeting minutes of July 25th, 2023. Are there any comments or questions on the minutes as presented? Hearing none, do we have, I'm sorry.
Sorry, I don't know if I attended that meeting, but my name is that the one I missed?
That was the one you missed.
Yeah, so I'm showing as attended, but I missed it.
Okay, we'll strike your name.
It was,
So, okay,
Okay.
so noted. Any other questions? No? With that, do we have a motion to accept the minutes as amended?
So moved.
In second?
Second.
I'll
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay.
yeah,
What-
sorry, you should second, I didn't attend.
Yeah, I seconded.
Yeah.
And then, let's see, election of officers. Okay, that's the annual election of officers. We have the position of chairperson, vice chair, and and secretary, correct? Okay. Open for...
I nominate Bob Holland as chair.
Second him?
Okay, I guess we'll go with all in favor of that nomination?
Yep.
Aye.
Okay. Vice chair?
Mike Rappo?
Mike Ruffolo? Okay. That's Tony, I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and secretary?
I'll nominate Tony Trippi.
I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So with that, we have a continuation of the triumvirate. Okay.
Try.
The next is the review and affirm October 4th, 2023 as an Energy Efficiency Day proclamation. Do we want to address what we're doing there? Go ahead.
Sure. So this is a continuation of the proclamation that we, time is flying by. I think we did this last year. I know that. I can't remember if it was 2 years ago as well. But again, it's to support the awareness of efficiency and bring attention to our programs. And
Okay. And the select board has already approved that on September 12th, and we're concurring that we're in full support of that, correct?
Mhm.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think there's anything that,
So it's gonna be the first Wednesday of every October?
every
Yes.
October, yeah. Then we just
October.
Yeah. And we're just affirming, so do we have a motion to, I'll make a motion that we affirm the Energy Efficient Day proclamation. And do we have a
I'll
second?
second.
A second? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Next, review the audited cable financial statements, internal control report. I turn that over to you, sir.
all right, we have our auditors here.
Welcome back.
Morning.
Good. I hope you had a great August.
No rain today, what's going on?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you want to do the,
First, can you introduce your guests?
Yes, this is our auditors from GSA. We have Jim and Adam.
Okay, thank you.
thank you. I believe that we have a reissued statement for the electric that we did a month or so ago. Adam, can you explain the difference? There's one transaction that was mixed up between cable and light, so we want to make that correction, and I believe you have the corrected statements.
Yep.
So-
The only difference is, in the other receivables, a receivable from, I'm forgetting the company.
Verizon.
Verizon. Verizon was, accidentally booked on the light side instead of the cable side. It was for the cable division, not the light division. So we've rectified that and have also booked that receivable on the cable statements, which we will be presenting.
And that's the next agenda item for the DPU report.
How much was the receivable? It must have been significant enough.
Yes.
Yeah.
220,000, 27,000, I think.
Yeah.
Considerable.
Which, not to reiterate, you just said, that's the premise, to have item 7 there, review and consider approval of the revised DPU report to reflect that change.
So did we not get that in on time then?
For the
The DPU report was supposed to be filed July 31st in order to get the
No, we got we got everything on time for the transmission stuff. We did, and we still have until.
I know you have until like
Yes,
September
that made it
30th
through.
to
Yeah.
file it, but you needed to get the DP, because we signed it in July when we were here,
For the transmission money.
Yes, and that went through.
and that went through, but you revised the report, so.
Yes.
Does that matter?
Not
It's
for
No.
what-
It's a correction, and they
Yeah.
accept corrections post.
Okay,
Not,
Yeah.
yeah, and it wasn't anything that impacted the transmission side of stuff.
Right, for
Okay.
their purposes.
okay.
Okay, cable
With that
next?
said,
Okay, so let's go through the highlights of the cable division. Clean audit opinion, of course, which is what we expect. No issues with that. The management discussion analysis, again, we always mention that's your take in layman's terms what's going on here, which is very enlightening for your readers. But we'll go to page 7 where the audit report actually starts. So assets and deferred outflows of resources on the statement of net position. Operating cash, 48.4 million compared to last year, 48 million, so it's a healthy, good position. Accounts receivable, 1.4 million, other receivables, 620. Materials and supplies, and then prepayments. So those are your current assets that are used in the normal one-year operating cycle of the department. Total 51 million. Non-current assets, the major assets there was your cable plant assets, net of depreciation and amortization, 23.3 million. So total non-current, 24.6. Total assets, 75 million. Then the deferred outflows of resources relate to pensions and OPEB. And these are those accounts, you'll see them under both the assets and the liability side. Those are timing differences with when the actuary does his study every year. There are variances from the study, the changes in the interest rate, changes in the performance of the investments. So what happens is those changes are amortized over the next 5-year period. Rather than hit the statement all at once, they're amortized. So those are the amounts that get carried forward year to year. So 76.7 are your assets. On the liability side, accounts payable, 2.5 million. Those are probably generally your December, regular December bills paid in the month following January. There's amount intercompany between SELCO Electric and SELCO Cable, 92,000. There's your bond payable is 660. That's the current amount due in the next 12 months. We'll see a schedule of the bond in the footnotes on how long you've got to go on that. The balance of the non-current portion is 11,830,000. Unamortized bond premium, 1.7 million, and then the OPEB liability, 91,000. So that's the good news on that is you're almost fully funded on the OPEB, which is very good. Total non-current liabilities, 13.6 million. Total liabilities, just about 17 million. Not drastically different. The statements seem to be pretty comparative to last year. Deferred inflows, again, if you get the pension OPEB, but there's another small one there, contribution aid of construction. So as you probably know, when a contractor comes and does work in the town, and they reimburse us for the materials costs or our manpower to put the system in place, they reimburse us, and that gets amortized over the cost of the asset that we built. So net position, net equity, investment in capital assets, 16.2 million, and unrestricted, 41.4 million. I have a question for Adam. I believe there is some bond money, right, with this department on the cable project. Is that in the operating cash?
That is in the operating
Okay,
cash.
do you know about the amount on that? 8 million?
Yes,
Okay.
about,
That's not about right?
yeah,
Okay.
78 million.
So that's why, in a way, the cash is a little higher than it might normally be. Moving on to the statement of revenues, expenses, and changes in that position. Operating revenues, they have your signal sales, your internet, and all of what you do every day, totaling 22.4 million, up slightly from 21.6 million the year before. Operating expenses, operations are 13.2 million, up from 11.7 million. Maintenance is holding steady at just under 800,000. Cable franchise and local access fees for the town, $1.1 million, just down slightly from last year's $1.2 million. And depreciation, net of amortization, 2.254 versus 2.033 last year. So your operating income is $5,019,000, up from $5.8 million last year. A few other items that are non-operating in nature: loss on disposal of equipment, bond issuance cost was the year before, and then interest expense on the bond, $345 this year, $348 last year. So overall net income, $4.6 million, down a little bit from $5.3 million. Good healthy picture, good strong net position, able to withstand the storm, I think. Okay. The statement of cash flows, again, that measures, your ability to pay your bills and you're in good shape financially. So the net cash provided by operating activities is almost $7 million, similar to the year before. So that's measuring whether you're able to pay your bills. So obviously, with the strong cash position, that's not an issue. The repayment of the intercompany is $86,000. That's the intercompany between electric and cable. And then you get down to your financing capital activities, what's going on with, building the system and replacing and paying off your bond principal, $658, the interest, $457, and the additions to cable plant, again, pretty strong, almost $5.5 million, down from $5.7 million last year. So it's a lot of activity going on in the plant. So the cash didn't change very much, $355,000 this year, where it was $16.8 million last year. And that is attributable to the number up above where it says proceeds from bond. So the bond was borrowed last year, it's being used this year and in future years. So that's cash. Page 11 is a recap of the cash in a little more detail. I was just looking down the bottom to see what cash accounts we're talking about, and that's your $48.4 million, the general fund. Any questions so far on the basic financials? Okay, so that brings us to your OPEB fund, which is sort of a standalone, but it's embedded in your cable department. So funds and deposits with the town treasurer at $1.2 million, down from $1.4 million. And I think I had the same story with the electric side. The same thing was going on. The investment income was down $234,000. I suspect, although the market's not great, I expect we've recovered a good part of that this year. So that won't probably be a recurring issue. Well, you never know with the market. But again, you're still nearly fully funded with that account. Let me run through the footnotes. I always try to think of anything that's changed. And the summary of the significant county policies, I don't believe there were any changes this year on that. So I think cash, let's see.
Just ask a quick question on the concept of being fully funded.
Mm-hmm.
It's obviously over it's a duration of time that OPEB contributions have to go. What defines being fully funded, and is that based off of the investment income and the ability to sustain the account? Could you just give a little bit
Sure.
of color to that?
So no, every 3 years, an actuary does a study, for the townwide study for the other post-employment benefits, and we, we're divided. We take our share of that. So that number is an estimate, an accurate estimate, depending on the actuary, but they do a pretty good job. So that's an estimate of what your liability is, and it's a moving number. That deferred inflows and outflows, that shows that it's not perfect, and that's where the adjustments are made to true that up. But the investment account, or the funds that they're using to fund that potential liability, are in the investment account, and they will also fluctuate based on what the market does.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I know there's a list of investments that a city or town can use, so there's not as much risk as perhaps in the open market, but even so, there's still some losses last year.
Mm-hmm. And with those losses, that 1.4 to 1.2, there's still enough in the account to sustain, maybe a flat investment cycle that we might see this year.
I think had that loss not occurred, you've been overfunded.
Okay.
That's what I think. We'll see. There's a schedule of that in the back. We'll come to that in a minute, but it'll show the actual numbers and it shows actually percentage funded. So take a look at that in a minute.
Thank you.
Of course, note 1 goes on forever. Note 2, concentration of credit risk, that talks about your, whether there's any risk of money being in the bank. Other accounts receivable. Again, some of these are just a little more detail on what's in the summary financial reports. So the other receivables was advertising, town receivables, and other receivables. Other receivables could be things like that Verizon we talked about, even though it's cable. Oh, this is cable, that's that one. Payment per franchise agreement, that's your agreement with the town to pay them for the, there's 2 components there, I believe, right? Franchise agreement and then the media collection for public access. Related party transactions, talks about transactions between cable and the town. Cable plant assets, we saw one number of 23 million on the balance sheet. This is the detail of the capital accounts that are, on the books. The distribution facilities being, of course, on the 3.4 million additions. That's where most of the activity is going on right now. Net investment capital assets. So this is the backup of the account. So we broke down net equity of the company between unrestricted and restricted for capital. This is the calculation of the restricted for capital. Other post-employment benefit trust fund. Now the pension and trust fund liability, footnotes go on forever. So they have to explain the investments and all that good stuff. The good news on the investments is you're all level 1, which is easiest to determine the value. So there's no, takes the risk out of it for the most part. On the bottom page 20, there are the numbers. So based on the actuarial study, our share of the OPEB liability is 1,305,606. And now that number went down from last year, 1,624,000. So another study, apparently an updated study was done, and maybe because of the interest rates or whatever embedded in that our liability went down. And I think there's less of so many variables that come into that calculation that the actuaries use. We just have to take those numbers. We don't audit the auditor. So.
Is any money being taken out of there yet, or is this all for the future? This OPEB?
I think it includes current retirement,
Yeah.
as well as those for the future.
Oh, so-
Now, could it also be affected if somebody had passed away and that
Yeah.
person drops off? And I think that may explain as well why liability may go down.
A good example of it in the actual study where the change of the terms they use. Age of everybody, their longevity, all that stuff comes into play. But again, I always look and say, well, it's just a guess. It's an educated guess of what's going to be. I think what it is, we know there's liability for pension, we know there's liability for OPEB. So take your best shot at bringing it on and show the liability. So that's our true value of the entity. So it's not a bad idea. That number on the bottom page 21, if the discount rate changes by 1%, you can see that the amount is so small, there's not much of a difference. Usually I look at this number and say, wow, that's that 1%, that makes a big difference. But because you're almost fully funded, there's not much of an idea there. And then on the healthcare cost trends, again, fairly insignificant. When you get to that fully funded position, you're in pretty good shape. You're not as affected. Just an example on page 22 on the bottom there, there's 4 items if you take all 4 years, and those are the items, the things that are happening that cause the OPEB study to change from year to year. And these, again, I mentioned being amortized over 5 years. I'm not quite sure if you do a study and you determine your interest rate was wrong and the liability is either more or less. I'm not sure why you wouldn't bring it right on, but GASB, that's what they decided. We're not going to hit the statements all in 1 year. We're going to hit it over 5 years. I think it is what it is, but that's what the rules are. So we just follow along. All right. Pension plan goes on. Again, no changes in the terms of the pension, so you understand how that all works. Again, the deferred outflows and inflows related to the changes in the study every year. Page 26.
Now, the town meeting, I think last year voted that the pensions could be adjusted, I think is what, when you do a change to it, could be adjusted from like a 12% of what their salary was to 14%, or maybe 16%, I don't remember the exact number. Does it ring a bell? Have we rolled that into what our pension expectations are? You know, the fact that they're actually gonna be able to be, when somebody gets a percent pay raise
Yes.
now for the town that's retired,
Yep.
it's only on the first like $12,000 or whatever that they made. Now, the town meeting, I think, approved 16 or I don't know what exact number, but it was
Base.
a base that went up. But does that does affect us, so have we taken that into consideration is the question?
Yes,
Do we know
the-
about that?
The actuary would.
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
they provide all those numbers to us.
Okay. Just so we're covered,
Yep,
just so our retirees are covered.
correct.
And
Let's see. Again, we go through all the investments. The bottom of page 27 is again, the change of the discount rate. The number's a little bit larger than the OPEB, so the net change is quite a bit different, 1% one way or the other. I'm looking for I think it's in the supplementary requirements, so we'll come back. I was wondering what the actual unfunded balance is. That'll be that's a little further on. We'll come back to that. Commitments and contingencies. Note 11 talks about our obligations to buy our signals. And then going down the road, you see they go down and down as we each year replace those with new contracts. Our risk management talks about our involvement in self-insurance trust, which is very good. The bond payable, there on page 29 is the for the next 5 years, and then 5-year increments beyond that of the principal and interest payments due on that note. This note 14 talks about us fixing the error we talked about early on about the receivable. Okay,
Appreciation.
The depreciation.
Oh, depreciate,
you
that was
restated
restated 21, I'm sorry, that's something different, yeah. This was on the other statement already, the first issue, okay, got it. All right, so now the sideways schedule, and I said right before the same thing, I said, I don't know how we're gonna fit 10 years on here. It's gonna be pretty hard to read. So this one is net pension liability. Okay, that's what I'm looking for. So CELCO's, let's see,
We're overfunded
overfunded.
by 1.3 million.
Okay, so, yep, for 22, the evaluation date, 1/1/22, cable's percentage of the net liability is 4.96 million, that's for the total town, because again, you're a part of the townwide system. So our
Overfunding.
overfunded by 1,348,000, that's good.
Yep, we have 5% of that.
Again, a moving target. OPEB liability, there's a 91,000 on column 22. Even with the, so if you look before, we've always been, are these all overfunded? Yeah.
No,
Each year?
these are liabilities.
Oh,
These
okay,
ones-
I'm sorry, okay.
Yep.
So it's pretty small.
So it's always been very good.
Okay. More OPEB disclosures. Seems like the same stuff over and over, but it's all required disclosures. Something more fun to read is page 33, where we break down the expenses. You know, we had total operations, now we get the breakdown of operations, which include all the various expenses. It's more in line with the DPU report, the categories that are used. Okay. 34 is well, that's a continuation, all the way down, total maintenance, operation maintenance expenses. I blew through it a little bit, but any questions or thoughts or comments?
Anyone have any questions as to cable? Pretty thorough?
No, good.
Goes us through? And we'll see this earlier next year.
Definitely, this is a certainly transitional year
Right.
with both
Yes.
departments, with
Sure.
the new software, the conversion, which is still, I think, a little bit ongoing. I was going to make a suggestion later to next year that perhaps we come in a little earlier, do some preliminary work to test the system, see if it's working to our satisfaction. We always do preliminary, field work in November, December. And I was thinking maybe after the first 3 quarters are closed, after September's closed, come in for a couple of days or whatever it takes. And we can do it as part of our preliminary work for next year. And that way possibly head off any issues that we see that might be resolved before the end of the year rather than during the audit season. Sound good?
Concur with that? Yeah.
We should probably get both statements done at the same time,
Yeah.
right?
That's always
Like
the
not-
goal.
Yeah,
That's
not,
always- yeah.
not rush to get one set done, so, and avoid having to restate them.
We actually have a meeting coming up with several of the departments that have ISO like you do, and because of the discussion with the attorney who represents most of these departments, and is going to be at A&E, is going to discuss the timing of how we can accelerate this and get everybody on the right time frame. It's not just auditing; it's it's the entire system, and how can the system be run better to make sure we're timely filing with ISO and not losing any opportunities for. That's coming up in October.
Okay.
We'll be attending, so that'll be exciting to put a little more substance to a deadline. So,
Which for this year, what kind of happened as well is we had an early February date, and with our conversion, there was no way we were gonna make that date. So instead of, because everything's scheduled so far in advance, you can't just say, hey, okay, bump us, 3 or 4 weeks. We got, the next available time slot was May. The goal for this year is to make sure we can hit all the transmission deadlines and everything. So we'll be working with GSA to book, around that appropriate time frame. But this will be our first full year in the new system, closing everything. So we want to make sure we give ourselves enough time to, do everything we need to do, but then get them in early enough to, hit all those deadlines.
Okay. Internal controls,
yes.
we're all set?
There are a couple of items. The drafting financial statements, that never goes away. That'll always be there, I suspect. On the current year, there were a couple of minor items, and this is, I think, all related to such activity, the volume of activity going on, the transition to the new software and all that. But utility plant, it was noted during the audit procedure that the internal controls around all transactions related to utility plant should be reviewed and approved prior to recording in the general ledger. It was noted that the plant retirements and related gains or loss on utility plant retirements, as well as depreciation expense and cumulative depreciation adjustments, were not accurately recorded. Potential effect of the financial statements may be inaccurate. Bond cash, it was noted that during the audit of the internal controls around the recording of the use of bond cash transactions were not recorded in the general ledger. SELCO was tracking the use of bond cash on an Excel file, but noted that the Excel file contained inaccurate information. Potential effect of this financial statements may be inaccurate. Similar to the one down below that talked about the depreciation expense calculation, which was a prior year comment that came off the system. These two have been resolved, so these won't show up either. So I'll be just drafting the financial statements next year. But again, this is all really just highlights the delay in getting everything done, the work really recreating the depreciation schedules and the depreciation retroactive for many years. So it was a huge task, done in a fairly short period of time, 1 year. I would have slowed it down a little bit, but at least
We had
it's done.
previously discussed a lot of that
Yeah,
in previous meetings, yeah.
yeah. So,
My only comment on the statement is that last sentence, which says, may be inaccurate. Do you sense what the potential scope of inaccuracy could be, or the range of inaccuracy?
The comment's more that it could lead to inaccuracy, not that it is inaccurate, or else we wouldn't have got
Because
the-
it's not being recorded in the GL specific, so you're taking 2 steps, right? You're recording it on a spreadsheet, and then you're taking it and you're recording it into the GL, where it's not being just directly recorded in the GL.
And these are all processes we're currently working on and transitioning to the new system. So in 2022, you went from Munis and Excel-based items to trying to get everything into the new system processes. And at the same point in time, not change any of the prior methodology, because we knew some of the methodology is going to change in 2023. So what you don't want to see is 2021 have one methodology for something, 22 have a different, and then 23 have a different as well. So some of this is trying to get that clean cutover and make sure, you know, everything's being put into the system correctly, but at the same time, 2022 is still representative of the methodology that we've been carrying along. So for things like, you know, retirements and capitalizations, as we build up our fixed asset database, this is something the system's going to do for us automatically, and that's where we're really going to gain the benefit of what we're seeing. And we're really investing a lot of time with operations right now and trying to build these assets up from what was just a flat balance. So prior, you just had a dollar amount in there, and we have no real understanding of what assets go in there, to now we're going to start breaking it out into detailed assets. And as we've, you know, had lessons learned in 2023, we realized we can actually go a little more granular to help us out to make this stuff more accurate. So legitimately, from the cable side of things, as we're, you know, redoing, let's say, the new fiber infrastructure, and we have to pull out of, you know, 2,000 feet of 48 strand, you know, fiber, we could actually know which node that's in. We're tracking all that, the dollar amounts, and the system will do the gains and losses and everything for us. It's just still going to take a bit to get all that perfected and set up, you know, exactly how it
Did
should
you
be.
understand all that?
I did understand all
understand
that,
all of that,
but
but
you
that's
said that, so you said that you mentioned that these issues have been resolved.
Yes.
So for in
In process with the new-
2023,
Yeah, with
you
the
know,
transition to the new system, they're taking care of all these things.
okay,
It won't be as manual. It'll be
Okay.
automatic in the system, the way I understand it.
Yes.
Well, the
In
bond-
bond cash will still be a little bit different, because as we kind of talked to earlier with the supply chain issues, one of the things we've had to do is we bought all these supplies for for the fiber project. And those all normally get set aside, and you'd pay through AP all the bond funds. Well, some of that has to be used for restoration of the fiber network right away. So if all of a sudden an electric line drops down and hits the fiber, it melts it, we have to go out and replace that. That's technically an expense and not a capital item, especially given how new the system is. So now we have to make that judgment call through more inventory to say, okay, stuff's going into inventory. As it's coming out, what's it being used for? So as it hits our work orders, that's where we're going to be, you know, going, okay, what costs actually hit the work orders for the bond, and be pulling that out. But it's still probably the most manual process we have out of everything. But we're going to be spending all that bond cash in.
so the funds that you received from the bond is just in operating cash, right? Like it's not separated into a separate cash account?
It lives, all of our cash lives with the town, so we do have a separate GL item for bond cash on our books, but we don't, because we don't control our cash, and what I mean by control our cash, when we make AP payments or payroll payments, that technically all gets sent to the town, and it comes out of the town's Munis software. So for our software, we're not calculating it at that point. If we were a closed system at that point, what I would do is say, okay, all this labor is for the fiber project, pull that directly out of bond cash. We're doing it a little bit delayed, if you will, where we have to go, okay, what was used for bond funds, and then remove that from the you know, doing a journal entry from our bond cash to operating cash. From this financial perspective here, I believe it's all just included in one. They didn't break out the two separate GL accounts, but we do have that monitored
Well,
on our side.
I know for like, for financial statement purposes, it's all in one, but
Yep.
for you
Yes.
to monitor what's going on, like what cash is being used from the bond for this project, is it if you have to do it with a separate entry, are you then keeping a separate spreadsheet on how you?
That's kind of what we were doing. So one thing we didn't have prior to the new system, we didn't really have work orders for the cable side. So work orders is how we're going to be capturing this going forward. So we'll have a work order for each node being completed. All the materials and everything gets charged into that node. Then once we have the full year, we go, okay, what was everything placed into work orders that year? That's what comes off the bond. From a capitalization perspective, it's a little different because it's what nodes went live. So it's two different things we're tracking, and we're building that up this year in 2023 in the system so we can track that better.
Okay, so you're doing a year-end reconciliation then?
Yes, that's what we've done like the prior 2 years is we've had to do the year end. And this year, there'll still be that, but it'll be more what's in each, bucket for the work orders.
Okay.
The benefit to the town of the interest received from all that cash, is that noted somewhere?
Yes. So they keep all the interest except for our depreciation fund of electric, I believe. In the bond cash we may get to keep, I'm not 100% sure. That's the one I'd have to look back into.
So what
but
is that amount?
I couldn't tell. I think it's a couple thousand.
Yeah,
That's all it is,
it's
just
not,
a couple of,
Yeah,
it's not a lot.
I thought it was more than that, okay.
no. From our full cash in their books, that's a lot more.
Yeah.
Okay. I think we don't have to vote on anything except the fact that we are accepting your audited cable. And we
Very good.
appreciate
Thank you.
you taking the time and also updating us on other corrections that have been made and also the internal control report. We look forward to seeing you within the next year.
Yes, soon.
Yeah.
Sooner.
We
Look
don't
forward to
usually
seeing you
vote.
next May, right?
I don't think we vote, mostly it just says review. Well, I mean, we can vote to accept it, but I mean, whether we accept it or not, it is the report.
Yeah, they're fine.
No, we don't want these.
Yeah.
Come back with another one.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
thank you.
Jim.
Okay, well, with that set, we can go into what was previously mentioned was the, which is the next item, is review and consider approval of revised 2022 DPU report. And you said there was,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
yes, and financial, and that's up to you. I think there's a quick update.
Yep, so basically what Adam and Jim had referred to earlier, there was just one transaction that had to be changed. With that, we want to just, we updated the DPU report and just want to get an updated signature. So we provided both the updated audited electric and the DPU report for you to approve and sign.
I
Okay,
defer to Maria.
yeah.
Yeah.
You buying what he's selling, Maria?
Yeah, I'm picking up what he's putting down.
Okay, great. With that, I guess we'd have a motion to accept and approve the revised DPU report.
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay, and we'll sign that. Okay. Which leads us to the next item. Well, your dance card's really filled today.
Yeah.
Okay.
me.
We have the financial reporting for the first quarter of 2023, soon to be followed by the second quarter report. So take it away.
Exactly. Okay, so this report, just to go over what we're going to talk about, the 2023 Q1 electric and then 2023 Q2, that should say electric as well, my apologies. But we're going to just talk about the income statement for Q1, just to go over the expense side of it. But for Q2, we'll go into the balance sheet and cash statement, just because those are year-to-date reports.
These are calendar quarters, correct? Not fiscal?
Yes.
Right?
Yes,
So it's
calendar.
January through March.
Yep, we're different from the town for that one. So taking a look at Q1, the income statement, when we take a look at our total operating revenue, we are 6% below plan for the budget quarter to date, and looking year to date, we're as well 6% under plan. Taking a look at operating expenses, we are 10% under plan for both quarter and year to date. When we drop down to the net income, you're looking at we're 26% above plan for quarter and year to date. This put us on target for our return on plant for Q1. Dropping down to year over year, we have a operating revenue increase of 43%, both quarter and year to date. And then taking a look at the operating expenses, they're 6% increase both quarter and year to date. Now, you have to ignore the percentages for the operating income, the gross income, and the net income, because I learned that there's no good way to divide by a negative amount that we had last year to give you proper percentages. But our net income year over year is about $3 million increased, which is good because we were in the negatives last year. Now, jumping over to Q2 for the electric, operating revenue for the quarter was above plan by 10% and 2% year to date. Looking at operating expenses, we were on target for the quarter and then came in at under plan 5% for year to date. Jumping down to the net income, we are above plan 65% for the quarter and 47% for year to date. Now, if you take a look at our return on plant, we're at 13%, and that is above our target range. This is actually planned, though, and there's two reasons for this. One is to offset last year's $1.39 million loss, and the other factor of this is when we calculated our GTA, we said we want to go a little on the higher side to make sure we cover the rates, but as well, at the point that we redo the GTA this year, we have the ability to move any funds into rate stabilization if it calls at that time. Now, jumping down to the year-over-year numbers, when we take a look at our operating revenue, quarter to date is up 49%, and year to date is up 46%. From operating expenses year over year, we increased about 8% for the quarter and about 7% year to date. Jumping down to net income, you'll see it increased about $3.2 million for the quarter and about $6.3 million for year to date. Now, taking a look at the balance sheet, our current total assets increased about $4.6 million, and you'll notice the preponderance of this comes from our prepayments, and this does include the MWEC working capital payment. Jumping down to non-current assets, they have increased about $2 million, and the majority of this comes from the net pension asset stuff. So that's similarly what Jim was talking about in the cable audit. This is on the electric side, which brings us to a total increase of assets of $5.8 million year to date. And if we jump down to the liabilities, we decreased about $32,000 year over year. Taking a look at our earned surplus, we're up about $5.8 million currently, and that's mainly due to the fact that we had a loss at this point last year, and we have a gain for net income right now. Our total liabilities and earned surplus increased 5.8 for the year, or year to date. Jumping over to the cash statement, you could look at, we started in our operating fund with $6.1 million for the year, and we are currently at $7.4 million. And our total available cash, we go from a little under $17 million to about $18.1 million. Any questions?
Part of this drove us to make that GTA correction to lower rates, right, starting in July,
Yes.
so that when we show all this profit that we've made over the last year, people need to realize at home that we've recognized that fact, and
Yes.
we are now sharing the wealth.
Correct.
Reducing rates.
We're making up for last year's losses first, and then, we lower the rates to Bob, to your point, to, make sure we're not just keep making more money.
Right. Good. Thank you. Any comments or questions on the quarters 1 and 2? If not, do we have a motion to accept the, no,
So
actually reviewing them. I don't think we have to approve, but,
You have to approve anything?
no, it just says review. Okay, great. Okay, well, you get a step down from the stage for a moment or so, and we now go to the ninth item on the agenda, which is income-based discount on new bronze internet package. Thank you very much for getting it presented.
Are you clapping that it's over, or well job well done?
No, we're not done yet. We're not done yet.
He's just a fan.
It wasn't a standing O.
Easier,
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Hey, who is that masked man?
Oh, hello.
hello.
So we're here to just talk about the new bronze package and the adoption of a income eligible discount for that package. Just to give you guys a background on the bronze package, if you remember, we once had a standard internet package. It was $39.95 a month. We've noticed that in the last, I would say, since the pandemic, there is a need for a lower priced internet package than we currently have. Our lowest price right now is $59.95. So we are going to be launching, I guess it's not really launching because we're rebranding the light package. We're going to be doing a bronze internet package to that's going to be 50 megs over 3 megs for cable and 50 megs over 50 megs for fiber. And it will be the $39.95 per month. This will take over for our Lightspeed package, which has been kind of decommissioned, I should say, for many years. Since when the standard package went away, the light package kind of took over as like a basic lifeline package. The speeds on light are 3 megs over 1. It is slower than most even LTE cell connections. It's not really usable for many people. So this new package that's 50 megs over 3 and 50 megs over 50 will be exactly what people need to access the internet, and you use it for streaming, basic connections to the world. So this package will be the least expensive package in the area. If you look at the least expensive packages, we have got Charter's at a 100 meg package that's $59.99. Verizon's fiber package is $49.99, and Verizon's 5G package is $50. So this package coming in at $39.95 is going to be the lowest package in the area that anybody can get. So it'll be good. With the bronze package coming, we are going to be upgrading all of our speeds. So you'll see on the second page, we've got silver on cable is going to be upgraded to 150 over 5. Gold is going to be 300 over 10. Platinum is going to be 500 over 15. Then on fiber, you see silver is going to go from 150 to 250. Gold is going to go from 400 to 500. And platinum is going to stay at the 1 gig range. All those speeds, when you look at it, we're giving everybody same prices, faster speeds. So it helps with everything. All the devices you have on the network. I know I have too many right now. But
So, can I just ask a clarifying question? Obviously, with the fiber project, we'll be having fewer customers on the left, on the left part of that chart. And then a full conversion at some point to fiber, and the rates across platinum stay the same. So if I'm a platinum customer today on cable, my rate stays the same, but I get a dramatic.
Exactly.
That's
The
the
rates,
attraction of going to.
same price, faster speeds.
Yeah.
And so that kind of leads us into how we make the package more affordable for income eligible customers. So leave it to Becca.
Baton to me? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm excited about this feature. We're hoping to unveil a discount for customers that demonstrate financial need. The idea is for it to be $15 a month applied to that $39.95 price point to bring the package to below $30 for customers who meet specific financial criteria. Customers would need to apply and recertify for the discount annually. We haven't fine-tuned that application process. We'll wait for your approval before we spend more time on that. But the idea would be for us to align our application process and our criteria to other existing programs that are income-based and similar, like fuel assistance, which is locally administered by SMOC, or the new tax relief discount program that the town is working on. So if a customer is formally approved by one of those programs, we could confirm that and approve customers quickly on our end. One other quick note is that this would be SELCO's version of the ACP program, the Affordability Connectivity Program that's funded at the federal level. We've had a few folks inquire why Shrewsbury doesn't offer this, like some other surrounding towns. And so we've looked pretty thoroughly into the ACP program, and our thought is that it makes more sense for us to develop something tailored to Shrewsbury. Since the ACP is funded with federal monies, its future is pretty uncertain on a year-to-year basis. So we'd like to offer something that's more reliable and predictable for our customers who need it on a year-to-year basis. So that's it from us. I think we would like you to vote on the concept of the discount if you're willing to, and of course, any questions.
Okay, so it's on a concept we're voting, not to actually implement, because you're gonna still be setting
It's
this up.
just so that we can continue down the path of evaluating how we're going to utilize SMOC or the town with their new taxes that they're doing for lower income residents. It's just so that we can continue down that path so that we can figure out how to do it.
Now, how does this lower data rate, bronze, work with our over-the-top?
So this is one of the reasons for this bronze package is we know that SELCO Stream, the new TV, will have to be distributed over internet, and so this 50 meg package will be able to run SELCO Stream perfectly fine. So we made sure of that. We asked our network guys to make sure that that would be the case. So. Because we also saw that it doesn't make any sense trying to make someone pay an additional $60 a month to watch TV.
Streaming allows you to have up to three TVs. Will this bronze support all three streams?
I guess
Yes.
Joel can answer that better than I can.
Okay, good. I think that's great.
Yeah, I think it's an amazing thing.
I obviously like the concept. One thing we should try to figure out is how popular are programs like this and what's the effect on revenue or profit. Another is I'm always afraid if we're collecting financial information, the fairness of that and also the privacy protection relative to that. I'd much rather if they've pre-approved somewhere else that's an automatic, but we're not in the business of identifying. So what that does is avoids, because it's not in our discretion, avoids disputes over it. It also avoids arguments of discrimination or arguments of subjectivity or any other thing. So to the extent there's an objective database in which we could say you qualify or don't, I think it's way better than us taking in personal information, trying to store it, trying to deal with the privacy issues.
Absolutely.
So you said the town already has that?
So,
Gonna bear
SMOC
service.
fuel assistance is one of those lists that we would be able to hopefully just access right from SMOC every year.
Right.
And our end we would not be housing the data or, placing subjective decision-making on that. If they're approved, that would be pretty much.
Right, it's automatic
you're
pre-approval,
good.
right?
Yep. So my thought process was directly in line with yours. And yes, the town has told us that they're developing a process that we might be able to piggyback off of. And we would have to look further into how that process works on their end. They have told us that that evaluation process might not be exactly what we need, might be missing some of the criteria that we would want to see. So SMOC might be the more reasonable thing for us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So and then the question is how people are educated about SMOC and what that program's about, and whether it's a word of mouth or whether people really know to apply for that and then get the benefit. So, I think it's a wonderful concept. I think that stuff like this is ripe for you getting sued or getting lots of emails or lots of phone calls. And so I would want to learn a lot more about, as you go through it, the details to kind of protect us from either perceptions of unfairness or actual unfairness. And then also making sure that to the extent we have any data, that we have systems in place for privacy protection. And ideally, we don't have any data, and that's a way better. Even having the list, honestly, is perhaps, data in which we now need to deal with differently from a privacy standpoint. So,
I think if we're gonna, it's great because, it's our way of competing with the Affordable Connectivity Program. So I guess if they have parameters, like it's like you have to, because you have to give them page 1 and 2 of your 1040, right? So you can see their gross income or their total income. And, what is SMOC using as their parameter to provide fuel assistance, and how does that compare to what if the affordability, they're like, okay, you have to be 160% within, the poverty range, and then the poverty level, like what is SMOC using? So we're we're on the same level as that, and we're not, because if SMOC isn't using the same as that, as what they're, do you know what I mean? So if SMOC says, oh, it's only 140%, and the affordable connectivity is only is 160%, then that, because we're not collecting the data, then I guess that would be my concern. Like we're providing more, we're giving you $15, which is this is even cheaper than what they're providing, and then it's at a lesser rate, right? Like a lesser qualification.
So which do we go with, right?
Yeah.
How's that decision?
Yeah. Like what? And I understand not having the information on file and it not being us, and if it's something that we can piggyback off of the town, great, because they have the information, and we can and we can just look at income levels, because that's what this is based on.
yeah, I mean, if the idea is that we have to get the first 2 pages of, I was like, oh gosh, that's the last thing I think we want to be collecting. So I would assume there are, and again, the privacy issue. So I assume there are kind of independent qualifiers out there that would provide the service of accepting the information. They're having the we're insured on the privacy protection based on the contract that we have with them, and knowing that from a reputation standpoint that they're qualified to do that. And then also then they're vetting the information and giving you the list. I think that's a better kind of buffer than somehow some employee getting stuff and who knows where it lands.
So someone right now who has just basic cable is getting TV, now they have to switch over, they're gonna stream, what's the cost of each?
So if someone had cable right now with no internet,
Right,
then the additional cost would be, if after the bronze package, the additional cost would be $40. But you would get a discount. We have a double play discount of TV and internet, so you get a discount on that. But it would be an additional $40 for the internet package to watch basic TV.
Do we have any idea how many people would be impacted?
For on the TV side, I don't have the numbers in front of me right now, but the number of TV subscribers without internet is low. I mean, it's less than 500 people in town that have that,
Okay.
so.
Let's see, I guess one of the things I would think, we talk about SMOC or whatever, but our housing authority has a number of, has three set, facilities basically that they run. And I don't think those people apply for SMOC because I'm not sure how their heating, electric is handled.
Yeah,
So they wouldn't have that data, but yet they would probably be somebody that would have to be certified. So getting back to Mr. Raffolo's comments about whether, how do we verify that? There really takes some looking at.
It's kind of down the path of what we do for Share the Warmth. The Share the Warmth program, when we are notified that people get fuel assistance and stuff like that, we notify them that there is Share the Warmth stuff, and they can apply at the different, I think Shrewsbury Youth Family Services, you've got St. Mary's, you got stuff like that. So it's the same thing where we don't receive anybody's data. We just kind of get the notification that they can have it, so.
Okay, well, I think this is something that's going to be have to take a look, try to look at, and I think overall, I think the board sounds like they're receptive to the fact that the bronze package and also the additional rebate, not rebate, but additional discount would be potential there, but we just need to make sure we're in lockstep.
The process
Yeah.
is going to take
Absolutely.
A lot
and
of work.
We can update you on that too. The bronze package, because of the work that needs to happen on the back end for the bronze package and the updates to all the current packages, we don't anticipate it going live until January 1. So we have this basically entire quarter to take a look at what we can do for the income eligible discount as well. So,
That'll go by quick.
I know, you blink, I know,
Okay,
exactly.
thank you. Oh, and you said you wanted to vote on the concept approval, or
Whatever makes sense to you. I don't know, Chris, if you have thoughts on.
I don't think we need to vote on
I don't think
anything.
we
I think
need-
basically we'll just wait for you to come back and
Okay.
present.
With
I think
further
we
details?
concur, I think overall, positively, we concur with
Yeah.
looking at, but I don't think
Yeah.
we need any.
Well, that's helpful to us, just the indication that you're supportive, then we can spend more time looking into these processes and come
Yeah.
back and we can formalize
Anybody
it.
have any comment? Agree with that?
One other thing is that, we shied away from the the senior discount. And I don't think this is a senior discount. I think it's actually,
Income, yeah.
better fulfills the intent of what a discount should be about, which is income, not age.
Exactly.
So I appreciate the shift, because there are plenty of seniors who could use the benefit, but there are also plenty of seniors in the town who really
Younger
don't need
families,
it.
younger families.
And so, and yet, yes, you had young families with many, many children who wouldn't get a discount. So this is a nice shift to what I think is a better balance to
Yep.
where we should have been.
Exactly, and even with the bronze package at $39.95, you're still bringing in, it's a very cost-effective program right off the bat, and then the lowering to less than $25 is going to be key for internet access for the town.
Could I just, if I may I had a couple of comments to add. So the $15 fee, so I guess just not to repeat anything from the discussion. So, some of our prior experience incorporates low income rates on the electric side. One of the points of pride for SELCO is the fact that our regular rate is still, last I checked, 30% lower than the low income rate for National Grid in all the surrounding territories. So we haven't really had to have this specific low income approach on the electric side. So hence perhaps some, internally we haven't had those measures, but many of our peers have a low income rate and they engage with a company equivalent to like a SMOC. Community Teamworks is one I'm most familiar with in Eastern Massachusetts. So all of your concerns that were mentioned are addressed there, where they handle all the vetting and they turn it over to us as the utility, as a pre-qualified individual. That coupled with the fact that there's all these community services in the town, we just make sure we're in that informational outreach that these organizations like Council on Aging has, or other social services that say, here's your flyers, call SELCO, and they do what they do best. So we're just an offshoot of that research and qualification process. And that was a pre-qualification for any low-income program that the utility offers. And in this case, we're talking about cable specific, but if we had other programs, it could be Share the Warmth, it could be a low-income electric rate, it could be low-income cable. The idea is to keep it consistent and broadly applicable to all of our services, so you keep the burden on the individual and the staff to a minimum. So that's one where the SMOC pre-qualification, tax pre-qualification makes the administration of this very easy. That's a big downside with ACP, aside from their projecting the funding to run out already, despite, throw aside a government shutdown. They already have the funding is going away in February, March, so it's just, we couldn't even predict what we would do there. So rather than deal with that, we'll just head it off. We can incorporate this as part of our budgetary planning process. We already have that in the budget set aside as part of our senior discount you mentioned. We have a projected quantity of that. It's hard to say, but I am optimistic that the quantities of folks participating in this program would be less. So the impact overall to the budget was probably a lot, is already incorporated with what we've been planning with, because the senior discount is still in place. And the idea is to dovetail, to give those folks someplace to go. If we can incorporate this discount at the same time that the senior discount goes away, there's an immediate transition plan for folks that would call in. So that was part one. The $15 figure also comes from the ACP, where discounts are between 10 and 50% of your lowest plan. So somewhere kind of in the middle that seems to make the most sense is this $15 figure. So of the $40, you take the $15 off, which you're talking roughly 30-ish%, is kind of in that middle ground. So that's where those figures came. And so I guess, if there's additional information aside from that to come back with a formal proposal, otherwise we could, build the rate over through the remaining months of the year, have a Jan 1 implementation date, and that would allow us to transition the senior discount to this program in that time frame as well. So
I got one other question. Because I see it an additional cost, whether we'd go this, bronze, whatever, for people who are currently just getting cable TV, no internet. So we bring in this bronze program.
Right.
We have them get internet. They have to go over the top. But now they need Wi-Fi. So they don't have a router. So there's an additional cost.
Yes.
What's the router fee that we charge?
It's
for
$10 for $9.95 for
a month?
Wi-Fi. Yep.
Right. Okay.
So what would total cost be with this new service as opposed to the old? What is someone paying now for basic?
Well, I mean, this is, so right now for basic, you're paying $33 plus the franchise fee, so $39.50.
$40.
Yeah.
So the new one would be 40 plus 15 if you,
Yeah, and we don't have that many people on just basic to watch TV. Most of them, everyone's on expanded plus. And like I said, a lot of people already have internet. This is just the small number of people that don't have internet. It would be an additional cost of $40.
Yeah, I just want to recognize the fact that there are some other charges.
Yeah,
yeah, there's other.
yeah, there will be more charges, and we'll evaluate everything next year.
But then again, maybe the same people don't have smart TVs either, so then they're really bollocks.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, because
Just
that's the
add,
other
though,
thing, right? Like, yeah.
To kind of like piggyback off of the services we'll be offering, the plan is to have an Android-based set-top box that could have Ethernet connectivity, so they wouldn't necessarily, if there was just one TV, they wouldn't need wireless capability. They could just have that connectivity with the base service. But if they want something more than that, then they'd have to consider adding that.
Okay, that's good.
Got it. Thank you. Okay. Next exciting topic that we have is, and I think, are you going to lead the charge there, Chris?
Yes, sir.
For, so I guess the next discussion is the takeover of the potential of Charter wanting to enter our business.
Sure.
Okay,
Okay. I'll
how about it?
I'll kick that off. Okay, so I think perhaps as no surprise, last month at a couple of meetings, select board meetings, it was revealed that Charter has officially applied for a franchise with the town of Shrewsbury. So just by way of a quick background, in any community, the select board is the franchising authority, and they conduct the process to vet whether or not a cable utility should be allowed to enter into the community's territory. And so when we found that out back, say a month ago or so, we did find it prudent to do a little bit of research and provide information. So what this memo details is what we feel like are important talking points that need to be conveyed to the community, because at the same time, this just gives us a data point to refresh and gauge how much does the community actually know about SELCO? Do they know about what their role is? Does a citizen know they actually own SELCO, that they are the investor? Because I think that creates a much stronger connection to what we do here and the role they play every day. So I know there's a lot of information here, and I won't go through every one line by line. I'm happy to speak to it, but I just wanted to cover the important part that we found, even as we engaged with other local media outlets and others, and we're gearing up, we engage with town meeting members, some of which are new faces perhaps than in the past, that in a constructive way, the knowledge of the role that a citizen has with respect to SELCO seems to be limited. And so our effort is now to increase that awareness to say, how do we differ? How do we differ? Because we have Eversource Gas in town. How is SELCO different than Eversource Gas? How does our business construct differ from theirs? And so that's part one, which is why it's listed at the top, and how that relates to the charter model, which is things we talked about, even going back to having a remote help desk, where we talked about the importance of having a localized workforce and not outsourcing a help desk to somewhere far away. And so now, with the prospect of a larger, I believe Charter is perhaps the third largest cable operator in the country. So here, it starts to highlight what are the advantages and the values that SELCO has versus a major corporate conglomerate, and whether or not that aligns with the value stream that Shrewsbury wants to maintain for this community. And so that then is the premise that these talking points adjust. So, like I said, there's a lot of text here, but it shows, starting with the ownership model. So we incorporated anything that folks would want to know in terms of governance, right from town meeting to this board to the employees here. Very simple model. And then we even copy in Charter in this case, because it's driven by Charter's interest in a franchise. Folks should know, well, how is this partner in our community structured? So you see Charter communicate, we just went to their investor report, and you can see how does that differ from SELCO's report and results in the financials that we just spent a fair amount of time discussing today. And so really it goes back to, locally owned, locally operated community versus a for-profit entity that has no linkage to Shrewsbury. And our goals are different. We talked, in fact, just to this meeting, the point of, it was in the the electric financials, but the fact that we're here, if we have surplus revenues with GTA in that conversation, we lower rates. We don't use it to bolster the profit margins for investors, whereas that's inherently baked into our model. And so those, I think, are important talking points that we have found when engaging with folks in the community recently. They're like, oh, we didn't know that. So those are the informal data points we use. And then we get into some specifics, with customer satisfaction and comparing statistics that might come up in a conversation. Worcester's community survey, the values we provide. We broke it out into sections. So if there are talking points that you can refer back to, the different sections here to look at that. And we even went and then we made that public records request, if you will, to get the franchise. And so Section 7 is a one-for-one comparison where you can see, their application. For instance, the things that I feel like we could market more actively than perhaps in the past, where we serve free of charge literally all municipal locations. We connected up over 40 water sewer sites free of charge. We connected up the police station. So all these things dovetail in, and then when you have this other provider, none of that is in that agreement, and so there's complexities there. And ultimately, it goes back to the point of the citizens are the owner investors. Town meeting a couple years ago, we talked about the fiber project. Town meeting authorized this investment in our infrastructure for their utility, being us right here. And so, we incorporated our favorite quote in here from the great Val Clemmy, who said, "Be like opening a McDonald's and having Burger King sell hamburgers out of your lobby," or something like that. We voted to invest in the system. We're here. We are an extension of the community, and these are the talking points.
Is this an either-or thing?
No.
So they just piggyback on?
They would piggyback on, and that's the, some of the stuff we put in here, similar to the franchise presentation I made in February. Maybe 10, 15 years ago, the argument was, well, there's no competition.
Right.
Well, today, if we look at the subscriber counts, like there is, in my view, the statistics show it, there is substantial competition. You can go to YouTube TV and Hulu and Netflix. It's, as I mentioned in that December meeting, our subscriber counts aren't going down because people stop watching TV. They're just going to a different platform. That's competition, in my view.
I just want to say, why do they want to come in now?
Well, they want fiber, they want the
They want the
internet,
fiber,
because that's
they
what
want the
everybody's gonna be watching their TV on. They don't care about cable.
And also, Worcester has lost a lot of customers. So Verizon came into Worcester, and Verizon has taken over a lot of Charter's customers. So that their head end in Worcester has capability to do more. That's kind of the next step is, okay, where else can we go?
Yeah.
And we're just over the bridge.
That makes sense.
What does it mean from an infrastructure perspective of, like, with, poles and lines, and how does that all work into this equation?
Great question. So in their franchise, they are claiming they'd be able to fiber the entire town in 12 months. To your point, with the amount of make-ready work that you're talking, pole replacements on the majority of poles to get the safety clearance spacing.
Really?
So now you're looking at double poles and wire transfers, and never mind the other half of town, which is underground. And so now you have to do all the trenching and road opening permits and paving like that.
We're not required by law to allow them to use any of our underground conduit. How about our utility poles themselves? Can they attach?
So they can attach.
They have to pay for that.
They would pay, so any make-ready work would be billed to them. They have to go through a grant of location authorization. So once once you'd have a franchise to be in Shrewsbury, then the next step is also a grant of location authorization, where the select board, as the administrator of the rights of way, would then go through a hearing and basically stipulate that, yes, they petition and, okay, we allow you to connect from point A to point B, your infrastructure, and then they can put on their requirements. Your infrastructure must be compliant with safety code. It must, I would advocate that it must meet the SELCO as pole owner. This would be SELCO Electric, the asset owner, meet their requirements. So they'd have a location.
Now, in a storm, a tree comes down, takes out, 3 poles, and we go and, we rapidly go and put our electric back up, our cable side comes and puts up redoes our fiber. We just leave their cables on their wires on the ground?
We
We have no requirement to maintain any of that, right?
Similar, and to your conduit question, it'd be similar to 2 houses. It's private property from 2 different legal entities, and literally you can't touch it. They couldn't use our conduit. We're a different legal construct, no more than I could go and install a pole in your yard. Same with the restoration, transfers, that's why all the horrors you've seen with double poles in the state, transfers between, Verizon transferring to a pole owned by, a electric utility, that type of thing.
So they say we'd come in 12 months, do fiber, okay, good luck with that. Then they sort of get it out into all the various nodes. Then comes the sort of customer engagement, and now you're basically convincing someone to, if you just got fiber run from Selco, now you're gonna really want to have Charter, because now you're gonna go through that process again with them? To directly to the house, I'm saying,
Correct.
Yes,
the individual customer?
yes.
And then they come in and lowball you for a 2-year contract,
Yeah.
So,
trying to drive you out of the business, and then later on, once they've got you,
And even with this, with the bronze package and stuff like that, even their 2-year contract is right around the same number. It's about $40 a month per service is that 2-year contract. So we'd be right there at the same number as their
But it would be
special rate.
but it's a problem, because then when we get less people participating, we have to raise our rates, because we need to stabilize our income, right? So, and then they come back 2 years later,
yes,
and,
jack
exactly.
their rate up
We-
once they've driven you out.
yeah.
It-
And we've had a higher, it's just, yeah.
So, sorry. If I may, I was just going to add, so those types of talking points we included here with press releases from Charter's engagements with other communities and even other states. They just had a big news article in Maine where they were engaging, so they had formed another, if you will, advocacy company using funds from around the country to speak out against municipal broadband, and so they had to research that. So I guess part of what I neglected to mention too is, before anyone, no one has a right to a franchise. So if Chris Roy Cable Company came into Shrewsbury, I would have to apply, and then it goes to a public hearing, and I have no qualifications to serve. And so part of this is to provide talking points to the public as required by law. The select board opens a public hearing about Charter, and then the public can then go and speak to, the question in summary is, should we allow a Charter franchise in Shrewsbury? The public can go and provide their feedback in this public forum to say, well, we've seen, here's the data points that we've seen, such as this main example, or others from Worcester and the data points they've had right next door. We've reviewed their customer satisfaction indices, which we incorporated in this research summary. And there is no requirement that
I seem to
Sure,
remember
you
in the
want to-
past when we had conversations about the franchise, that we were saying that if someone else came in and had to get a franchise, they would have to duplicate all of the things that we did supplying. That doesn't apply anymore?
So that's a really good point, thank you. It goes the other way. So that would be the challenge for us, is they could, through this public hearing, to your point, it's a negotiated thing. So if for some reason the select board decides they would like to proceed to allow charter access to Shrewsbury, they can then negotiate to say you have to match everything that SELCO provides. But there is having gone through our own franchise, there is a statute of limitations where they can't require that. So the fallback is our franchise reverts to theirs. So if they negotiate something less favorable, so for instance, that would create a complication on our end with respect to being competitive, right? So if they don't have an office because we did find other examples out there. But if they don't have an office in Shrewsbury, a local presence, office hours, local workforce, those are things. Free services to water, sewer, free services to municipal buildings. Those are all revenue items that, would tie arms behind our back versus theirs. And when you go to the rate making and revenue versus expense. And so those are the things that are risky on that respect, because if we're going to compete and the franchises don't match, now we have.
Well, and we have certain pilot payments that we could just say, no longer gonna make, and if we have competition, because unless they're required to do the same.
That's what I thought. The
Yeah.
conversation was when they talked about franchise.
Because there's a lot more than just
Coming
what we
in,
pay.
So what's SELCO gonna do to get the message out?
Great question.
Yeah.
So I thought
That's today?
it starts today. Yes, that
Are we gonna be seeing PSAs all over cable?
So great question. So obviously open to any feedback to that. And on a serious note, I figured this would be the starting place to have a formal document that this body could have to start with. That's part one. Part two is subject to other guidance from this group. My intent was to appear to any public gatherings and reiterate a lot of these points in any ongoing research that we do. And three, we had talked about internally about an effort that I have used in the past, which is, some kind of town meeting member outreach, where we go, and it's not isolated to this, just this. It's familiar with SELCO. Here's our programs. I've gone to numerous speaking engagements previously, and obviously it was a weird time here with the pandemic, but. Going by precinct to precinct, and here's an overview of SELCO. If there's new faces, we could go and talk about you as the citizens or owners, things like that.
So, this isn't a Board of Selectmen decision, they would vote on putting it on the warrant for town meeting?
Oh, sorry if I was confusing there. It is their decision.
It's solely the.
It's solely the
Yeah, it's a
selectmen's
selectmen's
decision.
There's precedent for for franchise agreements to be denied, though, correct?
Yes, we incorporated that one. Shutesbury charter filed for to enter into Shutesbury, a small Western Mass community, and they did their due diligence process, and it's one consistent state process for this, and Shutesbury ultimately denied access to theirs. So it's not. It's not common because there aren't that many municipal light plant cable operators out there. But, in those few instances, there's precedent that.
There is one
you don't have to-
technicality here. You got governance comprises a publicly elected commission, which is not
Oops.
true.
That is not true. That must,
Appointed commission.
you're right. That must have been a copy paste
Yeah.
error. Sorry about that.
Do we have sensitive timing for the public hearing and what we're talking about?
That's a good question. I believe, I'm not entirely certain that would depend on whenever they file a complete application with the filing fees and everything. So that wasn't mentioned in the select board hearings. But I would anticipate, I believe there is a 60 or 90-day requirement that once there's a completed filed application, that they'd have to have the hearing.
And have we gotten any feedback from select board about dissatisfaction in any way with our services, or any sense of embracing the concept?
I have not. I think, the timing works out well, having just completed our franchise at the end of last year. We went through all that same due diligence process. We, all of that, in our case, there was a franchise renewal, and again, as part of that standard, legally mandated process, there was the public hearing and everything, and our customer satisfaction surveys, the last one shows we're doing good.
Do we see ourselves getting on select board's agenda ahead of a public meeting, during a public meeting? Because we can meet, you can meet, and with our support, with the select board at any time to report back on what we do for the town and the community and our own. So we could do that on our own timeline. I'm wondering if that's part of the initiative to educate even the select board. Because, we take for granted, I've been on with other institutions, and sometimes you think you're doing wonderful stuff because you are.
Yep.
And folks just aren't thinking about you because they're so used to it and you're not on their radar. So sometimes you got to be, and it's kind of not in our, culturally not in our, probably, it's not part of our culture, but also not natural for all of us to boast. But, sometimes when you're being held up against somebody and compared, that's the time to say, hey, wait a second, I just want to let you know. So his question is if that's appropriate and when.
Good point. One thing we are being sensitive to, and it was highlighted even with our own franchise, is in this context, we have intentionally maintained distance with the town as counterparties and as competitors to this, so that way, the process can unfold without any
behind the scenes, yeah.
behind the scenes stuff. So
Nice.
Yeah, that's good.
yes.
That's
Yeah.
good.
So again, we've maintained that separation, and so I don't have any additional insights into what might be happening on that side, which is why the default I have is a public hearing, because anyone could show up to that. But in advance, I do know that was mentioned in the select board hearing that they have retained special counsel outside of town council, so that's specializes in initial franchise.
You got a lot of new select persons on there, and, they don't have the history that they had before.
So it's about a month ago, so I haven't heard anything new, but in that time frame, credit to our communications folks for going and putting this together, and and that is also some of the context just behind general outreach, and to your point, just refreshing people's minds about, hey, we're here for you, you're our investor, our owner, so we're here to.
Well, it's obviously a terrific summary, and it's comprehensive. So, the question becomes, how do you turn something so detailed and comprehensive into something that's a marketing piece and educational? So I think that's your next challenge. But
Sure.
I think you got it all down.
Nice. Appreciate it. So.
Well, it's good info. It's kind of interesting how we proceed, what we see in the future. I mean, the synergy that SELCO brings on the electric and cable side, combined, and the cost savings because of that, can be adversely affected, certainly if a franchise agreement comes in and for some reason we're kind of have one arm cut off on the cable side because of this having to share the market and then survive, so that when they start raising their interest, I just see it as a thing that they're coming in. Anybody that comes in here doesn't give a darn about the cable side. All they want is the internet. Right. And here we are just now finishing up a fiber throughout the town. Boy, what a deal for us. We're in great shape. For them, good luck doing it in a year. It's if that's what they want to try to do. and just making sure that we get our customers satisfied and making sure that we do the best we can. But one of the things is just doing our job.
But that's one thing I wrestle with a little bit is, you know, we're seeing declining cable subscribers, right, because of the competition and, you know, with all the apps and everything else you can get. And if it comes down to internet, what is it that, you know, on cable you can see it where, okay, different channel lineups, you know, whatever, there's maybe like a different product, but the internet speeds, especially with our fiber upgrade, is like
Competitive.
what's the value add to the community? I don't
Speed and
understand.
reliability is like the two factors exclusively.
It
so,
will
like,
blow them out of the
ours
water
would
in
be the best,
reliability,
Yeah.
right?
And service.
And
In service.
a significant portion of your electric plant now is residing on fiber infrastructure, right? Especially with the AMI project and the smart meters, so, you know, it's all tied together.
See, people really need to consider like the big picture, and I think to me that's the message at the end of the day is that reliability and, you know, storm outages, you know, on the electric and cable side, the whole package of Selco, what it is as an entity and the value that that brings to the community, from, you know, rates perspective to availability to reliability to storm restorations, all of these things, you know, the community benefit to the municipal buildings, that, you know, obviously that's the, you know, what you're trying to get at here, but that, you know, I think, you know, you've nailed it. I think that's lost on a lot of people. I think we, you know, we take it for granted in a lot of ways. And I think unless you know, have lived somewhere else where you're dealing with different utilities and you've seen what it's like, the grass is always greener, right? Oh, I can get a few more
Save
obscure
$10.
cable channels. Okay, sweet. Is that worth it in the big picture?
I just think it's interesting to note that a number of the people that we now have working for us in the cable internet came from
Right.
Charter because they couldn't stand working for them.
Right.
And so, you know, it's just interesting to see that, you know, what's going to happen on that side too. So,
I don't think you should underestimate
oh yeah.
people just wanting the cheapest deal at the time.
That's right.
Like
Great.
that's, I think that's my biggest concern is people just going for that. Like they don't. Again, it's the loyalty thing. Like they don't care. Like they just want to save their money at that point because it's. And then 2 years from there, they'll, you know what I mean. But the thing is, when they come back 2 years from now, our rates are going to have to
Damage
be
is
higher
done.
because we've lost. We've lost so many, right?
Right.
So, I mean, it's
That
not,
too,
it's not.
Maria, I
good.
think another thing is just to piggyback on top of that, the changing landscape of the town, right? The growth of the town, you know, 20 years ago, it was everyone from Shrewsbury, you know what I mean? It was like you knew, now we have, you know, which is a good thing, right? Growth for the town and everything. But I think that appreciation for services that Selco brings might be getting watered down, and they are just looking for the cheapest, quickest thing.
Yep.
Yeah, they don't know the history of it. You know, they weren't here when Selco went and individually wired every house when cable first came in, so that everybody had access from the get-go, or had the potential for the get-go. You know?
Right.
They don't remember that. You know, that sort of stuff. And,
Well, you're only as good as your next good deed in a way, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and that's only fair because you know the history almost doesn't matter.
It's history.
You know, it is history, but I think that I do think our message and our market, and I think there's a tremendous. I agree with Maria. People love to save $10, but that said, I think I perceive. You know, my wife is on the Facebook Mother's thing, and people are very, very complimentary of Selco, and without being asked or without solicitation. I do think the support and the spirit of Selco is there. I think we maybe have to ramp it up through social media and otherwise, but I do think perception-wise, it's not only about the dollar. People do appreciate, the community appreciates the value add of having a community-based utility.
okay. We've been informed.
I guess.
And I think the next item is what the correspondence that we have.
Rick's been busy.
Yeah.
You've been doing a great job, though.
Thank you. Yeah,
Again, yeah, another round of applause.
Because you understand what he said, and
Yeah, nice.
just glad he's
I meant
done.
that one.
Okay, so correspondence. Real quick on that. I don't know, and do you want to go through these, or we're just going to note that we've gotten some comments, right? Do you want me to just go through them, and you want to add on, or do you want to take it from, did you want anything particular?
The only comment I had just was recognizing that the correspondence was received, and we have responded to all of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Internally on your behalf.
Yeah, and one of them was, a general thing that I think a lot of people had, but we did away with the music channels,
Yeah.
okay? And the response on that was, that maybe if I paraphrase, is that that we got jammed with only a couple of days to decide. The cost was for 3 years. The cost was everyone that gets cable we have to pay for every person that's hooked up, not necessarily just those who listen to music. The cost was prohibitive, and because we try to keep the rates down overall for the folks on it, we decided that we would do away with the music because there are very many alternatives to obtaining background music. Am I paraphrasing that, or?
That's perfect.
Okay. Then the next one that we had was,
Is it about the streaming?
yeah,
Issues with the streaming?
yeah, the issues with the streaming, I think.
Which one are you on now?
Well, there was a concern stream advertising.
Oh,
Well, it was streaming because they weren't able to rewind. They went from
there was
TiVo to streaming.
There was a bug in, actually Aaron may be able to explain it a little bit better than I can, so I'll let him go.
Some of the app-based clients.
Can you come up to the mic just so people hear?
Oh, sure, yeah.
Because otherwise,
We know you're
somebody in the back room.
Very loud.
Hello.
Yeah.
So some of the app-based platforms, Android specifically, had a bug that was preventing like rewinding, fast forwarding in certain scenarios. In addition to that, Minerva offers certain features that are or are not available on channels based on like contract licensing issues. So we are kind of going through all of those and getting the data so that everybody's aware exactly what you can do like per channel, because some of them are different based on like what they'll allow you to do. No matter what, as far as like DVR function is concerned, which is probably mentioned in that,
Yep.
as long as you are recording, you can do anything you can do today. But because we have that active recording that's always there for you, some of those features aren't available based on what channel you're watching because of their licensing issues. Was there anything else specifically
So-
mentioned in there?
I have a question.
Yeah.
So with TiVo, okay, so you're going from TiVo to Minerva, right?
Yeah.
So there's contract issues with Minerva, but there weren't with TiVo?
Because of how it's recorded. So with TiVo, it's localized DVR. You have a hard drive in the TiVo box itself. But with the streaming platform, it's all recorded in the cloud. So when it's recorded in the cloud, you as a subscriber are not the specific owner of the content because it's not local to the device itself. So some of the larger companies, broadcast companies, they don't, like, you have to choose to record yourself and then you can do all those features. If you don't do that, they say, copyright, whatever.
So
Issues.
if you are streaming from a different platform, like, like a Disney Plus or like that has ABC, are you then able to rewind because they're the owner of the content?
Yes, but the nature of that is different because it's not live. So it's not like a live channel broadcast. It's one, you're paying Disney directly for the content, so then they allow you to manipulate it any way you want. But it's also not like a live sporting event or something like that where you'd run into those issues. So if that makes sense?
And this is also standard with any streaming that comes from like a provider like us. So like Xfinity streaming, my parents have Xfinity. If I can't get a certain football game at home, if I was to go on being out of state with them and to try to watch Fox or CBS, because I'm not coming from that same area, it will gray out that streaming for me. But if I want to watch the NBC game at night, because it's nationally televised, I can watch it through their Xfinity app at my house when we're a state apart. So it's kind of general to a lot of these, to anybody like us through the same type of device.
It all comes down to the commercials, right? Like it's about people skipping and fast forwarding through commercials. So with like apps that you pay for specifically, Disney Plus, Netflix, that's not a thing. They have ads in the beginning if you have like a cheaper version or whatever, but the commercials themselves with our service, like they don't want people skipping through those unless you are actively recording it. Then you're fine. Then it's do whatever you want. And there are some channels even with, and that's why we're going through them, there are some channels you can still even do that because they're not as strict or whatever. So
It all depends.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But we have avid testers that are going through all of the different channels to make sure we know exactly, how those are being treated.
Okay.
So will there be new documentation coming out in regard to,
Yeah, we'll
because that was
have it
part
all
of the
available.
problem too, right? Like, oh, you advertise this, but that's not.
Yeah, I mean, we have, you can pause, fast forward, rewind most channels, but there are gonna be some channels, and we're gonna have a list of what channels give us free reign, type of a thing.
Except for.
Yeah. Yes.
The biggest thing is what Aaron said, is because we're not recording locally anymore, that's the issue. You had full capabilities when you were recording on your TiVo device. Because we've moved to the cloud, you don't have full capabilities through. So that's the issue that we're running into. But we will post all the channels that have the capabilities, what they have, that type of thing. That's coming soon.
But the bug that was experienced was if you were recording, it was still having issues in certain channels or various applications, specifically Android. That's been resolved. That new app has been launched. So.
Well, I mean, again, with any rollout, there's going to be kinks that you need to work out, right?
Oh, yeah.
You don't know until you know.
And it's a lot of new features, right? Like stuff we never had before. Like, so it's not everything. Everyone really focuses on the recording aspect of it, but there's tons of new features that we never had, like catch-up TV. Like that was never a thing you could have before, where there's all these channels that you can go back within the last 72 hours and watch them again, right? Like that never existed. So understanding the nature of what you can do while watching something that isn't live or is catch-up TV, we'll have it all documented. It'll be on the website, I'm sure, and so.
Okay. Great.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Any other question?
No.
Jim?
But feedback, going down to the other correspondence we have some, favorable comments from folks where the teams that are going out and installing the streaming into folks' homes and hooking it up and explaining how it works to the clients themselves, so they're coming back and saying they're very appreciative of the experience of the service that's provided by the installers and whatnot. So
Yeah, and that'll only get better too, new products, so like those teams are learning, and as you do it, you get better at common questions that get asked, so you can answer those even before they get asked, right? So
Yeah.
that it'll only get better, so
Yeah.
that's the plus side, I would say.
Right.
yeah, it's interesting even on the streaming ourselves, what we've learned in the if you have a Fire Stick, the controller you have doesn't allow you to select a specific channel. You have to kind of go up and down the scale. Whereas if you have a Google stick, that actually comes with numbers on it, and you can actually type in a channel and select what's going on. So there are different options just on what streaming app
Right.
we provide. That they used to do over the top stuff. So
Can't do voice
from
activated?
From
Yes.
a technical troubleshooting aspect, it's been a fairly large undertaking, only because the teams are used to troubleshooting just like our set-top boxes. You see the same box, you see the same remote, and now it's be prepared to handle these 6 various, streaming platforms that are available to people, which, obviously we're excited to do, but there's a big part of the team's understanding and learning those. So when I say it'll only get better, obviously technology moves very quickly, but they're learning fast. So, they've embraced it, which is nice to see.
And on the plus side, we're working on actually having our own streamer or set-top box that will have a remote control with a keypad. We're hoping to present it to the commission next month.
Ooh, okay.
Exciting.
All right. Good. After we got everybody to buy a Fire Stick.
We'll swap it for you.
Or 5.
Okay, more fun.
Yeah.
Well, good. Okay, so much for the correspondence. I think the final agenda item is turn it over to you, Mr. Roy, as far as general manager's highlights, as if we haven't covered a number of them today.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Exactly. I won't take too long on this. I threw in, as I try to do, legislative bits that have either noteworthy items or themes consistent with the meeting. I tossed in the offshore wind at the top. We didn't talk about that today, but that is something we're actively pursuing behind the scenes as well. We, are engaging in outreach. Just the one cautionary tale is indicated by this article with respect to pricing. So we're doing everything we can to make sure that we're participating in a way that's economically viable. And so that's just one article I thought that would be of interest to get information on that. I threw in just a low-income discount rate article as it pertained to, I know this was for electric, but it was just, this is something that's newsworthy, that gets accolades, that another utility happens to be doing. So I feel like it just added additional context to our income eligible conversation for cable. Transmission spending is another uphill battle we're fighting, just with respect to those types of costs, and also dovetailing on the financials. To that point, that's through Q2 that we presented. We're leading into another winter, and so we're obviously forecasting those costs, and transmission and energy are a huge driver, so we're looking at those.
Comical. Lot to say on that one.
There's a lot there. Just a couple other interesting ones. The DOE data with the jump in grid attacks through the first half of 2023. Just, again, context, it's budget planning season, just so things that might shed some light on capital investments that we might make upcoming. Substation cameras, we're updating key card access, things like that. And it's not, some of it's just good practice, but B, it's also validated by the fact that we're seeing this uptick in grid security.
So I was going to ask a question on sort of this relative to, I guess, my first question would be, what elements of like NERC compliance are we obligated to partake in, right? Because it's on the bulk power system, transmission, generation, not on distribution facilities. But what are the subsequent requirements on a municipal distribution plant? And I know, at least in my time, it'd be interesting at some point, if there's ever a hole in an agenda, again, to kind of just discuss cybersecurity,
absolutely.
Personal information protection, all the things that are, many of the elements of NERC compliance on the bulk system, but what does that translate to for us?
Great question. I'll quickly answer it in 2 seconds. We, as the auditors mentioned, as one of the 7 transmission owners, municipal transmission owners in Mass, we are subject to NERC compliance. And that's part 1. Part 2, broadly speaking, with all systems, one of the things we implemented this year was Arctic Wolf. Arctic Wolf is our IT protocols that basically monitor the system and stop attacks before they become an issue. We had one last week that we had to, what did he call it?
Neutralize?
No, not neutralize. It was a different trendy term, but basically same theme. So we identified the issue. It was a Trojan horse methodology through folks bringing into the building personal devices that connect up, and so they identified it. We were able to stop that before it became an issue. So we are taking those measures, and a lot of those are behind the scenes to that point, but we're monitoring these statistics that show we need to stay on top of it.
Mm-hmm. With the transmission NERC applicability, does that open up the entire system, or is it just things associated with the transmission elements of the
transmission elements only?
Yeah.
Yep. And we do have we have the specialized attorney to help us with those filings, and attorney/consultant. So we do work through that, which also necessitates the filing. That was another wind one, which I'll just past.
Just wind is getting expensive.
Yes, that's
Yeah,
a
I think very
good summary. Paul Lang retired after 18 years as the head end supervisor. I just wanted to make sure we mention that one real quick. So he, long tenure. I just wanted to make sure we thank Paul for his efforts here. Amy is out front now. If you noticed another individual who you didn't recognize, she started last month. We have 2 new apprentice line workers, again, trying to keep that pipeline going in a difficult market. And we have an ongoing search for a double E. If you know anybody, encourage them to apply. And then I think a lot of the remaining items we have covered through discussion. If you haven't seen it come through your news feeds, I thought our folks and Patrick Collins did an excellent job with the energy audit of the 1830 brick schoolhouse. That was really, I thought, a good production there. So if you have a chance to click that
Well,
link.
yeah, because the folks up at the Historical Society are trying to get HVAC installed and throughout the place, to update it from the original install in 1832 or whatever the heck. I'm not sure what the age is, but
Every couple of hundred years.
Yeah. You would just you didn't get to quite attend that school, did you?
Yeah.
No,
Nice.
I missed that.
Nice.
But
We used to have our band rehearsal.
yeah, and the credit union used to be there and everything. But I mean, the bottom line is they did a great job of getting that, helping out. And we got a letter, I think, an email back from the folks at the leadership of the Historic Society as well, appreciative of what they had done up there. So that's great.
And just the last 2 I was going to mention in the interest of time. The police station building committee voted to approve transfer of $416,000 to SELCO to work on a new solar array on the property, on the building.
Good.
Is it going to be on the building, or is that where the cover,
Carport,
the carport area where they've got the covers? We put.
Good question. So we solicited quotes for both, definitely the roof.
Okay.
Also including the carport, if that's feasible. I believe that looks viable. And we added in, not included here, but the potential for a small battery storage unit, probably behind the building. Just to look at the pricing and how that would come in as impacting the,
Yeah, because they have
based on-
generators for backup, but additionally to have a battery.
Just to have a battery, we could use that for, it wouldn't be, one of these larger ones like for the Worthington and that other bullet point I was going to get to, but it would be a smaller one that we can leverage ourselves. This would be a SELCO-owned battery that we could leverage for a variety of different purposes. And then we did go to planning board. I think some folks did see that. The idea behind that was to basically get the word out that we're looking at doing this, solicit planning board feedback at some of their concerns they might have. My understanding, while I did not attend the meeting, my understanding that there was some candid feedback provided, not necessarily completely directed at the battery. But I did find it valuable because the idea was to then go back, to provide a more robust presentation that already incorporates the feedback and questions that they might have. So in case anyone asks about that presentation, we were there, and similar to some of the other energy projects I've been involved with in the past, that early access to let abutters know and let the public know, seem to help, just with information and help people become comfortable with what's being presented. That's.
I think about in the past, there was a big substation there at one time, and there's really nothing.
Right. Yeah, it's all opened, and our substation, Logan substation's right there.
Okay. All right. Well, I do want to thank the staff for their support at the Spirit of Shrewsbury this past weekend up at the Oak Middle School, in that even though despite the inclement weather, they did a great job of presenting SELCO in a favorable light to the public that got to attend. So thank them for that. Okay.
I
Any
also
other?
have a quick anecdotal, a few weeks ago, a huge tree in my neighbor's yard fell across the street, ripped out, like, broke a pole, I mean, it was nuts, like, ripped the, feeders into like 3 houses right off the side of the houses. It was bad, and, my neighbor, his wife, had some medical equipment needed to get up and running. Shock and awe came in, town DPW came in, tree was gone in a matter of like a half an hour, and then SELCO came in, slapped in a new pole. It was like 2.5 hours.
Wow.
This entire ripped apart part of the system was,
Unbelievable.
I would say within 2 hours, my power was back on.
Well, it's the same time, or the same storm that came through down at where I am, down at Orchard Meadows now. The, again, a tree came down, took out, pulled the wires off, because we use the heavy-duty transmission wires that doesn't snap the wire, but it did pull them off the pole. And again, the DPW, I think the coordinated, the cooperation within all of the community, the Public Works was there, just like you said. I thought it was Dylan with the chainsaws. It ended up being DPW
Right.
portion. They pulled the whole tree, rotted tree out, and new poles were in place, and our engineering folks down on a Friday afternoon just makes for a perfect time, but they did a great job as well. And the folks down there said they hadn't lost power in 10 years, and they were just totally amazed at how fast SELCO responded. So,
Yeah, it was awesome.
good job on all of those.
Yep.
Well, okay, with that, I think the next meeting is scheduled for the 31st of October, which happens to be Halloween,
Oh, yeah.
okay? So,
Do we have to
I'm
come
not
in
sure we need to get
costume?
dressed up for that, but.
Yeah, we have to come in costume.
But the,
We all come in costume?
yeah, you could. Anyways, so, that's still, everyone's, 31st, everyone's all set, okay, for now? Okay, and with that, can we have a motion to adjourn this meeting?
So moved.
Second?
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, and we're adjourned at,